They say there are places in this world that don't exist on any map. Hidden corners where time seems to stop and the ordinary rules of reality start to bend. You'd never find them on purpose, of course, but sometimes, if you're unlucky, they find you. Tonight, we follow the footsteps of Nathan Mercer, a photographer who stumbled upon one of these forgotten places, a town called Crescent Hollow. A town where the streets seem too quiet, the people too still, and the air too heavy with secrets. But Crescent Hollow isn't just any town. It doesn't let its visitors leave. And as Nathan soon discovers, its quaint facade hides something far darker. So, dim the lights, lock your doors, and listen closely. Because once you've heard the story of the vanishing town, you might think twice before wandering down that lonely road where the map ends. The sun was beginning its descent when Nathan Mercer pulled over to the side of the narrow, winding road. The amber glow painted the sky in streaks of gold and crimson, framing the silhouette of the forest in shadowy blacks. Nathan, a seasoned travel photographer, was used to driving through desolate backroads in search of hidden treasures, quaint villages, forgotten landmarks, and the occasional ghost town. But the stretch of highway he'd been on for hours offered little besides dense woods and the unnerving stillness of isolation. He checked his map for the 100th time, frowning at the blank expanse. The GPS had failed him an hour ago, and his paper map showed no towns in the area. Yet, as he glanced ahead, the faint outlines of rooftops began to emerge in the distance. Relief mingled with curiosity. A town? Here? Nathan shifted his car into gear and pressed onward. As he neared the town, the woods peeled back, revealing quaint Victorian-style buildings lined up along a single main street. A weathered wooden sign swayed gently in the evening breeze. "Welcome to Crescent Hollow." The sign looked freshly painted, its bold black letters contrasting with the peeling wood. Nathan furrowed his brow. He couldn't recall ever hearing of Crescent Hollow, and the absence of cell phone reception meant he couldn't Google it either. Still, the town's charm was undeniable. Brick-paved sidewalks bordered by wrought iron lampposts gave it the appearance of a storybook village. Nathan parked near what appeared to be the town square. His eyes roamed over the tidy storefronts, a bakery, a general store, a flower shop, all adorned with cheerful awnings. Yet, despite its picturesque appearance, something felt off. The streets were empty, eerily silent except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional creak of a swinging shop sign. "Hello," Nathan called out, his voice echoing unnaturally. A door creaked open, and a man in his 60s stepped onto the sidewalk, wearing a dusty apron and holding a broom. His face was lined with age, his eyes glassy but oddly piercing. "Evening," the man said, his voice raspy. "Passing through?" Nathan offered a polite nod. "Yeah, didn't think there were any towns out this way." The man shrugged. "Not many find their way here. Crescent Hollow's not. On most maps." Nathan laughed nervously, unsure how to respond. "Well, it's a nice place, quiet." The man's lips twitched into a thin smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Quiet, indeed. If you're looking for a place to stay, the inn's just down the street. Nathan hadn't planned to stop overnight, but the growing darkness and the odd allure of Crescent Hollow tempted him. He decided he'd explore the town and maybe take a few shots for his portfolio before heading out in the morning. "Thanks, I'll check it out." The man nodded once before retreating into his shop without another word. The inn was a towering relic of the late 19th century, its weathered facade adorned with intricate wood carvings. The brass letters on the door read, "Crescent Hollow Inn." Nathan stepped inside to find a small but immaculately kept lobby. A woman in her 50s stood behind the desk, her hair pinned neatly in a bun. "Welcome," she said with a warm smile. "Looking for a room?" "Just for the night," Nathan replied, glancing around. The decor was old-fashioned, with floral wallpaper and antique furniture, but the faint scent of lavender gave the space an oddly soothing atmosphere. The woman handed him a brass key with the number 7 etched onto it. "Breakfast is served at 7 sharp," she said, her smile unwavering. "Enjoy your stay." After dropping his bags in the room, Nathan grabbed his camera and ventured back outside. The town, bathed in the cool hues of twilight, had a haunting beauty. He snapped pictures of the empty streets, the shadowed alleyways, and the flickering gas lamps. Despite the calm, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he turned a corner, a figure darted out of sight. Nathan froze, lowering his camera. "Hello," he called, his voice swallowed by the encroaching night. There was no response, just the whisper of wind through the trees. He continued exploring, drawn toward the town's outskirts. Here, the buildings gave way to overgrown fields and crumbling ruins, their skeletal frames reaching toward the sky. A peculiar structure caught his eye, a dilapidated church, its steeple leaning at a precarious angle. Nathan raised his camera to snap a photo, but as the shutter clicked, he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He spun around, expecting to see someone behind him, but the street was empty. "Get a grip," he muttered, lowering his camera. As he made his way back to the inn, the unease in his chest grew heavier. The air seemed denser, the silence more oppressive. It was as though the town itself were alive, watching his every move. Later that night, Nathan lay in bed, unable to sleep. The walls of the inn creaked softly, and the faint sound of murmured voices drifted through the floorboards. He sat up, straining to listen. The voices were faint, but distinct, whispered words he couldn't make out. He grabbed his camera, its weight comforting in his hands, and stepped into the hallway. The whispers grew louder as he approached the staircase. A chill ran down his spine, but curiosity overpowered his fear. He descended the steps, his heart pounding. The lobby was empty, but the voices persisted, coming from beyond a small door behind the counter. The brass key in his hand felt warm, almost alive, as if urging him forward. Nathan turned the knob, revealing a narrow staircase that spiraled downward into darkness. The whispers grew into a cacophony, a symphony of overlapping voices. He hesitated for a moment, then descended, each creak of the wooden stairs echoing like a gunshot in the silence. At the bottom, he found himself in a stone chamber illuminated by flickering candles. The walls were lined with faded photographs, images of people standing in front of Crescent Hollow's familiar buildings. Nathan's breath hitched as he recognized one of the photos. It was the man from the bakery, but the photo was dated 1932. His pulse quickened as he scanned the wall, his eyes landing on photo after photo of people frozen in time. The dates ranged across decades, but all the faces seemed unchanged. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. Before he could process the implications, the candles extinguished, plunging him into darkness. And then, the whisper stopped. Nathan's breath quickened as the suffocating darkness closed in around him. The oppressive silence was even worse than the whispers. He fumbled for his phone, using its faint screen light to navigate back up the creaking stairs. His mind raced with questions. The photographs, the whispers, the eerie emptiness of the town. It all painted a picture too bizarre to rationalize. Crescent Hollow wasn't just a forgotten town. There was something wrong with it. He stumbled into the inn's lobby, his hands trembling. The warm glow of the chandelier above offered little comfort. As he made his way back to his room, Nathan froze. The once empty hallway now seemed to stretch endlessly, with doorways lining both sides, their numbers shifting subtly as he stared. His room, number 7, was nowhere to be found. Nathan clutched his camera tightly, its cool metal a fragile anchor to reality. "No, no, no," he muttered, pacing the hall. He turned to head back toward the stairs, but they too had vanished. The hallway now looped impossibly, a continuous stretch with no end in sight. Panic clawed at him. He glanced down at his camera, the screen still lit from his earlier shot. Instinctively, he snapped a photo of the hallway. The flash illuminated the space for a split second, revealing something chilling, a shadowy figure standing at the far end, its form blurred and unnatural. Nathan's heart hammered in his chest as he lowered the camera. The hallway was empty again, but the weight of unseen eyes pressed down on him. Hours, or perhaps mere minutes, passed before Nathan's surroundings returned to normal. He blinked, disoriented as the familiar wooden door to room 7 appeared before him. He scrambled inside, locking the door behind him and collapsing onto the bed. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it brought no peace. He dreamed of Crescent Hollow bathed in blood-red light. Its streets swarmed with faceless figures, their hollow eyes watching him from the shadows. The photographs from the basement hung in the sky like constellations, their subjects whispering his name. "Nathan, you're part of us now." He woke with a start, drenched in sweat. The room was freezing, his breath visible in the dim moonlight. The next morning, Nathan ventured outside, desperate for answers. The town streets were no longer empty. People milled about, smiling and waving as though nothing was amiss. The bakery was open, the general store bustling with activity. Nathan approached the man from the bakery who was sweeping the sidewalk with an air of practiced ease. "Morning," the man said, his tone far friendlier than the previous evening. Nathan hesitated. "I didn't realize there were so many people here." The man chuckled. "Oh, Crescent Hollow can be quiet at night, but we're a lively bunch during the day." Nathan studied the man's face. His features were the same as they'd been in the photograph from 1932, every line and wrinkle frozen in time. "Have you lived here long?" Nathan asked, feigning casual interest. "All my life," the man replied with a knowing smile. "And how long is that, exactly?" The man paused, his smile faltering for the briefest moment. "Long enough to know that Crescent Hollow grows on you. Folks don't leave once they find their way here." Nathan's stomach turned. Determined to escape, Nathan headed to his car. He tossed his gear into the backseat and started the engine, the growl of the motor breaking the eerie calm. As he drove out of town, the tension in his chest began to ease. But Crescent Hollow wasn't done with him. 10 minutes into his drive, the forest began to close in, the road narrowing until it disappeared altogether. The trees pressed against the sides of his car, their branches clawing at the windows like skeletal fingers. Nathan slammed on the brakes, his pulse racing. He reversed, the car jerking as it bounced over uneven ground until he found the road again. He took a different route, certain it would lead him to freedom. Yet, no matter which path he chose, all roads led back to Crescent Hollow. The townsfolk were waiting for him when he returned, their expressions serene, yet unnervingly expectant. The man from the bakery approached, his hands clasped behind his back. "Lost?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of mock sympathy. "What's going on?" Nathan demanded, his voice shaking. "Why can't I leave?" The man's smile was a perfect blend of pity and amusement. "You've been chosen, Nathan. Crescent Hollow reveals itself only to those it deems worthy. You're special." Nathan stepped back, his mind reeling. "I don't want to be here. I don't belong here." The man's smile hardened. "Oh, but you do. The town has chosen you, and there's no escaping its will." Nathan turned and ran, ignoring the shouts and stares of the townsfolk. He didn't stop until he reached the church on the outskirts, its crooked steeple looming like a sentinel. Inside, the air was heavy with decay. The walls were lined with pews coated in dust, and the altar was bare save for a single black candle that flickered weakly. Nathan felt drawn to the altar, his feet moving of their own accord. As he reached it, he noticed a journal lying open, its pages filled with spidery handwriting. The entries detailed the town's dark history, how it had been founded as a haven for lost souls, a place where time stood still. But the town demanded loyalty. Those who tried to leave were consumed, their essence feeding the town's eternal existence. The final entry chilled Nathan to his core. Once you are chosen, the town marks you. There is no escape. You become part of it, and it becomes part of you. Nathan's hand shot to his neck, where a strange warmth pulsed beneath his skin. He rushed to a broken mirror near the corner of the church and pulled his collar down. Etched into his flesh was the town's emblem, a crescent moon with a hollow center. The door to the church slammed shut behind him. Nathan spun around, his heart racing. The townsfolk stood in the doorway, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You're one of us now," the man from the bakery said, his voice echoing unnaturally. Nathan backed away, clutching his camera like a weapon. "Stay back!" But the townsfolk advanced as one, their footsteps eerily synchronized. The candle on the altar flared to life, casting long, shifting shadows that danced across their faces. As the light grew blinding, Nathan felt the world around him begin to spin. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the town's emblem glowing brighter on his neck. Nathan awoke to the sensation of damp earth beneath him. His head throbbed, and his vision swam as he blinked into focus. He was lying in the middle of Crescent Hollow's town square. The air was heavy with mist, the dim glow of street lamps casting distorted halos in the fog. Disoriented, he tried to push himself up, but a sharp pain shot through his shoulder. His hand brushed against his neck, and he felt the emblem, raised and burning against his skin, as if it were alive. Around him, the townsfolk stood in a silent circle, their faces void of expression. The man from the bakery stepped forward, his hands folded neatly in front of him. "It's done," the man said, his voice calm and cold. "You belong to Crescent Hollow now." Nathan struggled to his feet, his body trembling. "What are you talking about? I don't belong here. I never wanted this." The man tilted his head, his gaze unnervingly serene. "The town decides who is worthy. You were chosen the moment you crossed its threshold. It's not about what you want, Nathan. It's about what Crescent Hollow needs." Nathan's mind raced. He needed to escape, but every attempt had brought him back here. There had to be a way out, a loophole, a weakness. Ignoring the stares of the townsfolk, Nathan stumbled toward his car. The townspeople didn't move to stop him, which made their silent presence even more unnerving. His hands shook as he fumbled with the keys, jamming them into the ignition. The car roared to life and he slammed his foot on the gas, speeding out of the square. The fog thickened as he drove, the road ahead barely visible, but this time, something felt different. The oppressive pull of the town's boundaries seemed to waver. Nathan gripped the wheel tighter, pushing the car harder. He glanced at the rearview mirror and his blood ran cold. The townsfolk were following him. They weren't running or driving. They were simply there, appearing at intervals along the road, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the mist. Every time he blinked, they were closer. The forest loomed ahead, its dark branches clawing at the sky. Nathan's chest tightened as the trees began to thin. Could this be it? Was he finally breaking free? But as the road opened up, he saw something that made his heart sink. The sign, "Welcome to Crescent Hollow." He slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. He was back where he'd started. "No," he whispered, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "This can't be happening." The townsfolk stood in the square once more, waiting patiently, their forms barely visible through the mist. Nathan got out of the car, his legs shaky. "What do you want from me?" he shouted, his voice echoing in the stillness. "Why won't you let me go?" The man from the bakery stepped forward again, his expression almost pitying. "We don't want to hurt you, Nathan," he said softly. "Crescent Hollow needs you. You have something the town can't survive without." "What are you talking about?" Nathan demanded, his voice breaking. "I'm just a photographer." The man smiled faintly. "A photographer, yes, but more importantly, a witness. The town exists because of those who see it, those who carry its essence. You've captured its spirit in your camera, its story in your photographs. Without that, we fade." Nathan's pulse quickened. "You're saying the town, it's alive, it's feeding off me?" "In a sense," the man replied. "Crescent Hollow is a haven, but it's also a prison. You were drawn here because the town knew you would see it, understand it. Without someone like you, Crescent Hollow would wither and vanish." Nathan shook his head, backing away. No, I won't let this happen. You can't keep me here." The man's expression darkened. "You don't have a choice, Nathan. The mark on your neck binds you to us. You've already become part of the town." Desperation clawed at Nathan as he bolted toward the church. The journal he'd read the night before, it had to hold the key. He slammed through the doors and ran to the altar, his eyes scanning the pages for anything he might have missed. His fingers trembled as he found a passage written in a shaky hand. The only way to break the bond is to destroy what the town has taken. The mark is the key, but severing it comes at a cost. Nathan's hand flew to his neck. He didn't know what severing the mark meant, but it sounded dangerous. Was it his only way out? Before he could think further, the townsfolk appeared in the doorway. Their eyes glowed brighter now, their movements slower, deliberate. Nathan grabbed a shard of broken glass from the church floor, holding it in front of him like a weapon. "Stay back," he shouted. The man from the bakery stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. "You can't fight this, Nathan. Accept your place and the town will care for you. Resist and it will destroy you." Nathan's mind raced. He glanced at the glass shard, then back at the journal. The mark is the key. With a surge of resolve, he pressed the jagged edge of the glass against his neck, wincing as blood trickled down. The emblem burned white-hot, and a deafening roar filled the church. The townsfolk screamed in unison, their forms flickering like static. The walls of the church began to crumble, the entire structure shaking violently. Nathan collapsed to the floor as the mark on his neck disintegrated into ash. The air grew impossibly bright, then silent. When he opened his eyes, Nathan was lying on the forest floor. The town was gone. No sign of Crescent Hollow remained, just the quiet hum of the woods and the distant chirping of birds. Nathan touched his neck. The mark was gone, replaced by a faint scar. His camera lay beside him, intact. He flipped through the photos, his hands trembling. The images of Crescent Hollow were still there, vivid and haunting. But as he stared, the figures in the photos began to fade, one by one, until only the empty streets remained. Nathan sat in stunned silence, the weight of the town's secrets pressing down on him. He had escaped, but the price was clear. Crescent Hollow had left its mark, and no matter where he went, he would carry its story with him. Some things, he realized, could never truly vanish. And so, dear listeners, our tale comes to an end. Nathan Mercer may have escaped Crescent Hollow, but the mark it left on him, and the chilling truth he uncovered, will haunt him forever. Perhaps it's a lesson for all of us. Some places are meant to remain hidden, and curiosity, well, it can be a dangerous thing. But fear not, our journey into the shadows is far from over. Join us next time as we delve into another sinister tale where the line between the known and the unimaginable blurs and darkness beckons. Until then, keep your wits sharp, your lights low, and your doors locked. After all, you never know what might be waiting just beyond the edge of the light. This has been Sinister Chronicles. Good night, and pleasant dreams.